Welcome to the Blockbusters and Birdwalks podcast. I am the curator, Garrett Chaffin-Quiray. Today we have a conversation with a friend, Ed Rosa.
That's me. Hi. My filmmaking partner and I have a YouTube channel, Toothless Richard Productions, where you can see a number of our short films. We're taking a look at 1976. We'll be covering Rocky, The Enforcer, The Bad News Bears, The Killing of a Chinese Bookie, Obsession, and King Kong.
I'll tell you my Harry Callahan story if you tell me yours.
Dirty Harry is a character that has been culturally significant, popular enough to warrant a film and 4 sequels. Much like Rocky, I was sort of lean on my Dirty Harry.
My story has to do with Clint Eastwood being one of those stars in the firmament above my family cloud. My parents were equally drawn to him. My grandparents were drawn to him for different reasons. One set of grandparents repelled by him, his violence, what his roles represented. The other thinking that he's a kind of great masculine figure.
Yeah.
And I was born into the mix of experiencing him largely through the Dirty Harry franchise. And when we would occasionally go rent a VCR, we were sometimes allowed to get an R-rated movie, and I was always pushed towards getting one of the Callahan. Now, the other memory that I got of this, the big networks used to have these movies of the week evenings.
Oh, yeah.
Regardless of whatever the exact schedule was, it was a thing for an adult to realize that a movie that had been big 2 years ago, if you hadn't been able to make it, couldn't afford it, had kids, which was the case in my family, you could get lucky, and sometimes those big hits would come around.
Yeah,
you could just watch them at home.
They'd wind up on network TV.
And there's something charming about that, because like we're all used to with streaming media today, it's the convenience of home. You can wear your underpants, you can snack all you want. You can't pause, and you can't stop, and you can't know when it's going to happen again. So when you learn that a movie you have wanted to see will show this Saturday on CBS, you get the kids to sleep, you get your snacks all arrayed, but you do know that every 15 minutes you get a potty break, because there's going to be commercials. This is a long way of explaining. There was one night when I had troublesome insomnia as a boy. I don't know why. But I wandered out into the living room, and my dad was alone. Probably my mom had gone to bed. My brother was asleep somewhere else in the house. He was really interested in this movie, and he allowed me to kind of sit with him on the couch, because it wasn't the commercial break. He didn't want to get up and miss something and put his boy back to sleep. And it was the original Dirty Harry.
Okay.
And the sequence that I remember it being, there's a moment when Harry has been tasked with taking phone calls at payphone booths as Scorpio runs him around San Francisco to make sure he's not being tailed. And in the end, they have a confrontation. And I was totally confused. I don't know who this Eastwood guy is. I just know that my dad digs it, that there's funny tension, and that this man is being exhausted until there's an act of violence. Commercial break.
Right.
Taken back to bed. As I grew older, again, with a rented VCR, occasionally in my youth, we would rent Dirty Harry. I know we rented Magnum Force, the first sequel, and by that point, Sudden Impact had been in theaters, so I was aware of it as a phenomenon that way. And I think, in addition to these movies of the week kinds of experiences, I saw pieces of The Enforcer, the movie we're talking about today, the second sequel. What was troublesome about that, though, and this is where it gets to me as a dude in his middle years, I thought I saw The Enforcer whole. I never have.
Oh, okay. So you found that there were chunks of it that were missing when you revisited it.
Or as I watched it, this makes no sense. This is not in my archive. What is happening?
Right.
This doesn't add up, because there were featured moments in the movie that did come back to me instantly, and I went, that's exactly what I remember.
Yeah.
They weren't always in the same order, which tells me that I probably saw it many times, commercially segregated, movie of the week style, but never the whole thing in one sitting, never the whole thing against those pieces. All I saw were several pieces over and over again, kind of like how I see Jackass when I'm moving to the cable channel. I never see the whole movie, I just see the same stunts over and over again, which caused me to think I've seen the whole movie. This is all a long way of saying that Eastwood has been, as I say, one of those big stars my family's always gone for, and I've decided as I've grown older, that I'm eating at the table too. He's great. I just dig the guy.
Yeah.
On the other hand, I'm old enough now to respect the fact that he is a fine artist, and he's also a schlock technician.
Sure.
And this movie's that schlock. It's terrible.
Yeah. I kind of, he seems to me to, in the way I feel like Pink Floyd picked up the torch from the Beatles, I feel like Clint Eastwood did that for John Wayne.
Stoic, able to wield weapons.
Right.
He seems to be comfortable with the ladies, although he doesn't act on that very much, because that would be unseemly.
Well, because he's not at the mercy of his urges.
He can keep himself zipped.
He can remain moral.
Let's worry about morality in a minute. He's got a code, right? And that code is what he lives by. And there's something really wonderful about him being so intuitively in touch with what his sense of good and evil is, right and wrong, that he's willing to pursue that even if it's against the law.
Right, because sometimes laws just get in the way of
just
doing
get
the right thing. Pesky laws trying to, stop him from being a force for good.
The Enforcer, then, is the second sequel in the Dirty Harry franchise.
So wait, is it the second movie, or is it the third movie?
The third movie, second sequel.
So it's Dirty Harry, Magnum Force, The Enforcer, Sudden Impact, Deadpool.
There you go.
Okay.
The gist for all of the movies, for the uninitiated, is that Dirty Harry Callahan, a long-serving inspector, usually associated with the Homicide Division and the San Francisco Police Force. I looked him up on the wiki, and there's a page devoted to him.
Right.
He was born in 28, which I think is the same year of birth of one of the two people who created the character. It was a married couple, I think, came up with the idea for him.
Harry Julian Fink and R.M. Fink.
That's right. And R.M. is the missus, and Harry, I think, is the person he's based on by birth.
Funny.
Yeah.
How funny that the last name would be Fink. And they create this hard-hitting cop.
Right. So we're meeting him mid-career, and he does not take shit from the police around him, from the politicians above him, and certainly not from the citizenry, including all of the criminals that he's trying to hem in as a representation of state power. He carries a long gun. He's not in any way hesitant about using it when necessary. And the troublesome thing about Harry is he's typically acting in favor of protecting the innocent, and he's willing to hurt the evildoer. On its face, very few of us would think that that's wrong. The complicating factor of how Harry is created across these 5 movies, but certainly in the first one, he's a vigilante rung amok, and he definitely goes right over the civil rights of people who are, they're criminals.
Well, they're crooks.
They are crooks, and we have no doubt.
They shouldn't have any civil rights.
And he's willing to just go right to that line and go blow right past it, which makes him a kind of a devil figure to the left and the progressive side of things. And to the right, he's like, well, of course, that's what you ought to do. It speeds up jurisprudence. It's just punishment. And, well, he's handsome to boot.
Yeah, he's kind of like an armed Archie Bunker.
Yeah, no, that's a very good connection. And of course, Archie Bunker was top of the airwaves at the time this movie comes out.
Yeah, I got to believe that Archie Bunker would have been watching Dirty Harry and complained to himself, like, why can't Meathead
be like this? Yeah.
Didn't need no welfare state.
Everybody pulled his weight.
G.R.O.S. sour and great. Those were the days.
In the first movie, he's chasing a serial killer, Scorpio, who eventually kidnaps a group of school children in a bus on a field trip, and he has to save the kids and kill the bad guy, and he's successful. In the second movie, he's recuperated, and the second movie was written by John Milius.
Was it?
It was.
Okay.
And it's about it's
making me want to watch it.
It's kind of rad. It's about a group of 3 highway patrolmen who are a one-way street kill squad, and he's recruited to their cause. He realizes he's not quite like them and ends up being hunted by them. He has to defeat them, and he does. That's the second movie. This third movie, The Enforcer, features Harry at a moment when the SFPD is opening up to a new thing called woman cops.
Yeah.
It's also opening up to a moment when there is a Symbionese Liberation Army-ish group of multicultural young people who want to seize state weaponry, including explosives and bazooka-like weapons and automatic guns, to threaten the state, and eventually Harry has to bring them down. He's saddled with a woman police officer, jumped up to becoming an inspector at his peer level, played by Tyne Daly.
Right.
And he objects to all of that entirely.
You know, we've talked about him as kind of this sort of archetype of conservative desire or whatever.
Right.
but he's not so chiseled and stuck in his ways that he can't be a little bit progressive.
Yeah.
This is the same thing as Grandpa Torino, where he hates, what is it, the Hmong people?
Right.
He doesn't totally change, but he's also a little with it.
It is easy to say that Clint Eastwood is this conservative figure, as you were suggesting. It's also possible to complicate that by realizing that his mode of conduct in the world is that right action matters, loyalty to a cause matters, pride in doing hard work well matters, and having your friends and upholding them, that matters. And all of that in the service of the vulnerable.
Yeah, and all of that is actually really true.
All of it is true.
Absolutely. I mean, no matter which side of the political aisle you fall on.
And as I'm sitting here with you, and I'm going through the sort of mental Rolodex of titles in his filmography, both as actor and then as he matured as a director-actor, and then sometimes just as a director, very often the central character is somebody who's coded that way, but that code is not race-sensitive. It's not ethnically specific. It can be any person.
Right.
But it, of course, happens to be that his superstardom is based on being a certain physical type, which you can't avoid. He's Irish-looking, tall, handsome, white, blue-eyed, athletic, got good hair. He's got all this weaponry. That can also come in different forms, so long as the person carrying the form has an impression that seems to be implicit to their character of what right and wrong is. They want to protect the helpless. They want to protect the vulnerable. They're willing to do the hard work. They'll put themselves in harm's way. They don't take bullshit.
Right.
That's key. They don't see that things are more complicated than they're not complicated.
Right, they're not. It's what's right is always pretty
always
evident.
right. It's a beam of light above everything. Yeah. And of course, the conversation we have in society concerns how complicated rightness is, how complicated wrongness is. And we can get bogged down in that mud. But in a certain sort of basic principle way, when you're dealing with friends and family, if they're your friends and family, there are these ideas that you can all agree with without roughing it out over policy or where public taxation gets spent. We all sort of have an impression of what right and wrong is. And of course, the magnificence of a Dirty Harry character in a Dirty Harry series of movies is we can crystallize all of that through really cartoon narratives. And this movie is great at doing that.
Yeah.
In fact, what's funny about it, and because I mentioned to you that I don't really think I saw it whole until we had an excuse to watch it together, I have been reflecting on the fact that it got to the self-satire of a police movie in 1976 long before that became a gag reel with something like Naked Gun and its series of shows and movies, and anything that spins out afterwards from the 80s onward.
Or like we were talking like Sledgehammer, which is not having, as a kid, Sledgehammer only ran for 2 seasons, but I fell in love with it immediately.
Yeah.
I watched it. I couldn't believe it got canceled, that nobody watched this thing. And not having seen this until now, I'm like, so Sledgehammer was a spin-off.
Right.
Like, because
they couldn't get Eastwood to do TV again, so they hired this guy with the granite chin.
Right, and that even though, like, that they're not playing the stuff in The Enforcer for laughs, it's like
funny.
It's like watching Sledgehammer the movie.
Yeah, there are a couple of outstanding moments of violence in The Enforcer where I kind of, ooh, they really got out the squib set and went for a stunt that I wasn't expecting. They were going for something
when they kidnapped the mayor and the dude in the car in the back seat with him gets shot in the head. I mean, they really, it's like, it was like when they shot Marvin in the face in Pulp Fiction. I mean, there was blood everywhere.
Yeah, they decided they were going to bring some energy. And that was a goof, and that kind of caused me to think, oh, they're going for serious. But some of the dialogue sequences make you think, they couldn't possibly have meant this to be a read of serious. They couldn't possibly be doing that. But then you look at the credits. Sterling Siliphant.
Pretty impressive resume. Yeah. I mean,
In the Heat of the Night is his Oscar-winning role.
Yeah, when I watch Noir Alley with Eddie Muller on TCM, and he's talked about him a number of times. Yeah, he did Village of the Damned. He did The Lineup with Eli Wallach, which is amazing. He did Over the Top.
Yeah.
Right?
He's done some junk, and he's done some great stuff.
Charlie? Yeah, he's a
socially realist, politically sensitive writer who can create characters.
Yeah.
And what's weird is that this doesn't demand any of those skills. This is a live-action cartoon before that became a regular feature of action movies. If you think about what this transitional moment of the middle 70s was, and we're thinking about 76 through our series together, what's important about this third Harry movie is it is the twist towards making these live-action people into things that are so excessive. It would be more successful with CGI and animation, but we're still 2 generations away from that being possible. Example. Harry bumps into an accidental hostage situation in a liquor store, and in negotiating with the kidnapper bad guys, they want a car, so he goes and gets his car.
With a police radio.
And he drives his car through the lobby and shoots them all dead.
He shoots a guy in the balls from behind.
Right, while he's running up a stairwell.
With his 44. Like, even RoboCop's got to do it from the front.
Yeah.
But somehow Dirty Harry Callahan can take this guy's balls off
Right.
from behind. Now, that's precision. That's the guy you want holding a gun.
And Eastwood is aging in place pretty well. He's in his middle to late 40s when he makes the movie. He's not yet a little bit creaky and past 50 like what he would get with Sudden Impact. He's about to make a turn in the later 70s towards hanging out with an orangutan and doing all kinds of things which are very unconventional for a stature star like he was at this point. This movie, though, struck me as I was going into it thinking, oh, this is going to be a hard-hitting Serpico-like story. Like kind of how I remember Dirty Harry.
Right.
Or kind of how I remember Death Wish. You roll those movies together, and there's a really fertile moment in the early 70s when a few very big American filmmakers and a few very big American movie stars were taking apart what law enforcement was about, what its failings seemed to be, and a tacit recognition that these righteous, white, vengeance-seeking ass-kickers like Bronson and Eastwood, and to a degree a Pacino or somebody like him, are falling apart and they're becoming dinosaurs in place.
Yeah.
And yet these movies get erected around them to say, no, these guys still have the answers because they, with great fury, they know what the right thing to do is. Trust them.
Ever since the advent of TV and broadcast media, it is the public's desire to have characters like Dirty Harry and to see these kind of movies. Does it speak at all to the notion that news as a product is so much about inspiring fear?
A sidebar. When I was in grade school, maybe you had a similar experience where different community leaders or people with interesting jobs would be asked to come in and speak to the kids about this is what it is to be in sanitation. This is what it is to do water safety. This is what it is to be a police officer. There was a police officer who showed up one time to do exactly that in front of our elementary school. And we were all geeked out. Like, ooh, that person up there's got a gun.
Yeah.
Because they did, right in their hip. And somebody asked, how many people have you shot with your gun? It was, some 8-year-old boy or something right in the back of the room.
Yeah.
And this officer was very sober and very clear and said, I've never drawn my weapon. That's always been in the background of my thinking. Twin that, if you can remember the sequence.
What do you want to be a cop for, anyway? Why aren't you married and having kids like everybody else?
Why aren't you?
Nobody in their right mind's asking.
Coitus interruptus.
I beg your pardon?
Oh, Coit Tower. It's vaguely phallic, don't you think?
I never thought of it that way.
I make up names for things. For instance, you are Cold Bold Callahan with his great big 44. Every other cop in this city is satisfied with a 38 or 357. What do you have to carry that cannon for?
Guess I hit what I aim at, that's why. 357's a good weapon, but I've seen 38s careen off windshields. No good in a city like this.
I see. So it's for the penetration.
Does everything have a sexual connotation with you?
Only sometimes.
Want to go have a few beers?
But then you realize that there's lots of reasons why crime happens, and it's rarely so obviously necessary for Dirty Harry Callahan to pull his 44, walk into a room and shoot 5 perps in the middle of a crime. How often does that happen? Well, in life, well, never.
Right.
In a movie, every 10 minutes.
Yeah. Well, and if he did, in real life, there's going to be, most likely collateral damage.
In an early sequence in this, after Harry has blown his car through this liquor store, and he's busted down from the homicide unit to being a paper pusher to interview new inspectors, and he's told The mayor is going to allow 8 of 100 people to become investigators for the police and inspector. 5 of them will be men and 3 of them will be women. You're quota filling. That's how Moore gets the job, and it deeply offends Harry. What's interesting about the sequence, when he interviews her, and she happens to be the first woman to walk into the sequence, so we know she's an important character, he's asked to put her into a hypothetical, just in conversation. What would you do if?
I want to know what Officer Moore is going to do when somebody points a gun at her and says, "Hit the deck, you son of a bitch!"
You're just deliberately trying to fail this candidate, aren't you, Callahan?
Well, if she fails out there, she gets her ass blown off.
It's my ass.
Another detail, of course, because it's my research interest, this is a Christmas movie of 76.
Yeah, Merry Christmas.
Right? I mean, flash forward. When Sudden Impact came out, I think it was 1983, my parents took 10-year-old Garrett to go see it.
Okay,
it was our Christmas movie to go see together, to again watch really, really violent stuff. And in that movie...
I'm sure they ramp it up more by
every
that point,
movie.
because you're going to have to at that point.
It feels like that's the case. So I continue to be shocked at my middle years age presently, to look back at being 10 years old, being taken to go see Sudden Impact, knowing how violent a movie that was to me then. Yeah. And there it is. That's the sweet spot.
Well, that's the American way. Love is inappropriate for children, but hate and violence is okay.
And it's a Christmas movie. And against this movie, Rocky was out at the same time. The Outlaw Josie Wales was a summer release, and that was an Eastwood movie, him being a Western hero.
Yeah.
Who's a former Confederate officer who is allowed to be a vigilante and mow down a lot of bad guys who mowed down a lot of his Confederates.
Right.
And at the end of the movie, after creating this found family of women who he saves, a Native American man and a Native American woman, and various stragglers who glom onto him, he's allowed to fade into obscurity after he's committed incredible violence, destroying a lot of people. That's July 76, and I have to imagine it was still in theaters because movies stayed out for a while.
Yeah.
So that's like Harry's grandpa. What I'm just boiling around is this idea. He embodies what we wish, mythologically, our American might had projected into Southeast Asia from the early 1960s through the fall of Saigon as a kind of what if, a counterfactual to what actually happened. And that gets spun into the domestic sphere through these domestic movies and doesn't unwind in any significant different direction, with rare exception. Coming Home in 78 does a different take on the Vietnam experience, until we wrap things up middle 80s with like Platoon and Full Metal Jacket, where we turn back to the war and think about what was this war experience? And how do we evaluate its successes and failures by thinking about individual troopers? I know that's a long way away from Harry, but I do feel it bubbles up very obviously.
Yeah.
There are various characters in this who are wearing the swag of the Army surplus store, whether that's a green jacket. We know that our main bad guy, played by Deveron Bookwalter, who I think was one of Andy Warhol's penis stunts for Blowjob, the movie.
Okay.
Whether that's true, that's just what my memory tells me. That actor is characterized as having been in the NAM. All of that bleeds over into this 1976 movie, which would have been shot in 75, which was the year Saigon fell, which was when we were definitely, as a culture, licking the wound of what had happened and trying to cover it up with some fresh Band-Aid that would wipe it away. In step, a deeply middle-aged, handsome, robust, rogue dude who will simply run into harm's way and solve the dilemma the way that we wouldn't let our military go solve Vietnam.
Right.
A little detail that got on my nerves but made me laugh. My kid is watching a lot of anime right now.
Okay.
And all anime girl characters that I've seen and what she watches run with their arms at right angles to their body. They don't swing to help their body mass move. And their footfalls are very small. It's inefficient. That's the way that Inspector Moore runs.
Right.
Because she's carrying a handbag and her pistol.
Right.
She's wearing a skirt and boots.
And,
it's totally impractical.
Right.
But it's the acceptable costume of a woman in the workplace.
Right.
Yeah, she's in an impossible position. You're expected to be as butch and strong and militant as the fellows around you, but the skills that presumably you bring to the table are distinct. She's a pretty good researcher. She can go through the archives and find information that kind of amazes the men around her because they haven't thought, just go pull up the file and read the notes, and you'll know everything you need about the perp. They don't do that. Right. They rough people up. She does, and that's what she brings to the table. But she's still disarmingly and appropriately garbed to run after people.
Right.
But not Harry. Right. He's always jogging. Always ready with pithy remarks. Anyway, I know this movie was thought of as very pro-woman. I know that it was thought of as being a real step towards second-wave feminism achieved. Mm-hmm. Look, this is a lady cop.
Right.
And she's offended by being called a lady cop, but she'll accept it because she's at least on the job. And she begrudgingly wins over the respect of her immediate collaborator, her partner, Inspector Callahan. Mm-hmm. Importantly, she's killed.
Right, yeah, she's sacrificed, which I honestly was kind of surprised by. Does that reinforce maybe the notion that she shouldn't have been a cop in the first place? Because, look, she gets shot.
But it does viciously arm Harry to grab the RPG and blow the bad guy out of the tower.
Oh, yeah.
It's just so dumb. Given all of that, and that we really don't see female police officers, with the exception of Policewoman on TV, which offered that, but that was cheesecake.
Yeah.
She's going to go undercover this week in a harem. She's going to go undercover this week on the beach in a swimsuit. We're going, it's that kind of thing. This is a chink on the armor of paternity, of patriarchy, and Harry kind of authorizes it.
Yeah.
The movie concludes with he goes back to her body as we get a helicopter shot and final credits music and the wonderful score by Jerry Fielding.
Right.
That's the best thing coming in this movie.
Yeah.
When you widen the view of when this movie comes out, and I like to look ahead a little bit, by the time we reach the late part of the spring of 77, Rabid comes out in April, Annie Hall comes out in April, Cross of Iron from Peckinpah comes out in May, and so does Star Wars, and so does Smokey and the Bandit. Those movies are an interesting sample of the other social pressures that were showing up, and every one of them is a kind of genre take on things that the filmmakers are concerned with to try to earn a buck, entertain an audience, and none of them is doing a very good job about expressing reality.
Right.
They're all kinds of fantasies that we wish were true for various reasons. Most notable, of course, Star Wars takes us a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away to really just talk about men who cruise each other in bars.
Right.
It's a way that the movies don't talk explicitly about what they're really concerned with, but project it through genre, where we can start to parse the ideology and culture of that time and see what seems to really be going on. And I think what's really going on in something like The Enforcer is the agency of aging, wealthy, capable white men. They're not ready to get out of the way because they're still vigorous enough to be in charge.
Right.
And that's a tough lesson for any era to go through. And we're, of course, being visited by one right now.
Yeah.
We're in a gerontocracy where most of our main national leadership is over 70, and that's not representative of any kind of average or even median age of America.
Right.
But that's who's in charge. And there is, in my mind, a real energetic need to get the olds out of the way.
Yeah.
The Enforcer boils down to exactly those kinds of issues. It manages to swallow them up with fury of violence. It obliterates the guy with a rocket. And that concludes the movie as he stands mourning the deceased partner who died saving him.
Right.
This young white lady who looks up to him as like this mentor figure, potential lover, maybe father figure, all of that rolled into one, and is strafed by rifle fire, and she's dead. But he stands over her. That's really what I think the movie's chewing on it at a deeper level, and that's not any kind of stretch. It's not that interesting an observation.
Right.
But it makes the movie worth something. Now, some thoughts from Ed about The Enforcer.
We have credited as the character Carl is Dick Durock. He was Swamp Thing. The feckless cops underscore conservative notions of a weakened police force under leftist rule. Was speaking through clenched teeth an artistic choice for the character, or is Clint Eastwood just always so pissed off? Was Cagney and Lacey actually a spin-off? When they do crash through the glass of the porno shoot, I was like, why are all these porn actors trying to put their clothes on so fast? I believe was on Alcatraz. Officer Moore shoots all 6 of the bullets in her revolver. She takes the empty shell casings out and puts them in the same pocket with her unspent. You know, you might have saved the guy that owns this store's life, but does he have Dirty Harry insurance?
This is Blockbusters and Birdwalks, a conversation between Garrett Chaffin-Quiray and
Ed Rosa.
Boop boobity doo.